Lewis and Clark. You've probably heard of these men before and how they went on an expedition to the Pacific Ocean. But that's a very short and sweet version of the story. Today, I'll be looking into the Great Lewis and Clark expedition. So sit back, grab a mask, and enjoy. There are 4 key members in the expedition: Meriwether Lewis, William Clark, Sacagawea, and York. Lewis, the leader of the expedition, was hired by President Thomas Jefferson in 1804 to explore the Louisiana Purchase and know what was there. Lewis was a former army soldier, but he was not a scientist. Instead, he was educated by Jefferson while serving as his secretary. When Jefferson set up the expedition, he sent Lewis to Philadelphia to learn about map making, zoology, and many other essential things for exploring. Just like Lewis, Clark did not have a formal education. Instead, he had been captain in the militia, where he learned survival skills, map making, and more. Clark was also skilled at leading men and inspiring them to overcome hardships. This is why Lewis asked Clark to help him lead the expedition. Sacagawea was a young Shoshone woman who went along with Lewis and Clark as an interpreter. She was the only woman and mother in the expedition, but her work ethic and knowledge of the many languages spoken earned her the respect of the entire expedition. York was the first African American to travel across the United States. He was a very critical member of the expedition because he was Clark's slave. He performed many tasks and voted in all decisions, making him the first black man in the United States to vote. While Lewis and Clark were exploring, they were given 5 expectations and goals to complete. First, they needed to map all major features and rivers. They also needed to find the sources of the Columbia and Missouri rivers. Third, they would need to collect information on the plants and animals they found along the way. Finally, they were ordered to establish good relations with the Native American tribes and therefore strengthen the U.S.'s claims to the western area of North America. Lewis, Clark, and 29 other men who were known as the Corps of Discovery departed from St. Louis, Missouri, and rode up the Missouri River to Fort Mandan, North Dakota. Here, they set up a trading post and lived with the Mandan Indians during the freezing winter. The next spring, they left the Mandan and followed the river as it twisted west. This was not easy, as they had to carry boats and supplies around the many rapids and waterfalls through dense forests. Finally, they reached the confluence of 3 different rivers. They determined this was the headwaters of the Missouri River. Before they knew it, the Corps of Discovery had made it to the Rocky Mountains. As they abandoned their canoes, they knew they would have to cross the Rocky Mountains quickly before winter set in. As it got colder, they were running out of food and resources. Luckily, Sacagawea, Shoshone Indian Lewis and Clark had hired to translate and guide them, had convinced her brother, the chief, to give Lewis and Clark 9 horses. Without these horses, the Corps of Discovery may have not made it before it was too late. The tired and hungry expedition emerged into what is now known as the Columbia Basin, where they met the friendly and respected Nez Perce Indians. The Nez Perce fed the starving explorers and gave them 29 more horses. Most importantly, though, they told the Corps of Discovery the way to the Pacific Ocean. As the group drifted down the Snake and Columbia River, they could feel an energy. After a while, they finally made it to the Pacific Ocean. The happiness in everyone's soul was immeasurable. But sadly, they couldn't relax. Winter was coming, and they needed to build the shelter. They initially were planning on building the shelter on the north bank of the Columbia, but after talking with the local Chinook Indians, they decided to build Fort Clatsop on the southern bank of the Columbia River. The winter at Fort Clatsop was difficult. The Corps of Discovery was tired, wet, cold, and homesick. But once the spring of 1806 hit, they were heading home. They took the same route that took them to the Pacific all the way back to St. Louis and arrived September 23, 1806. Many thought the expedition had died. Others were excited to see them back. President Jefferson was surprised and proud when he received the news. Aside from collecting and discovering many new plants and animals, Lewis and Clark made the first detailed maps of the Western Territory. Their maps became the road maps for fur traders, missionaries, and many other travelers throughout the West. Also, by being the first white men to name, chart, and map the Pacific Northwest, Lewis and Clark heavily strengthened the United States' claims to the Pacific Northwest, which is why we are here today. Hope you enjoyed this mini documentary. I've been working on this project for the past week nonstop, so thanks for watching. I am now going to go to bed. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.